It was a cold Thursday night, the kind of night when the rain refused to stop whispering to the roof, and loneliness crept in through the cracks of the walls. I had no reason to expect anyone. My husband was away again, probably chasing one of his never-ending business trips or maybe another woman. I didn't bother to ask anymore. Silence had become our safest language. But that night, that knock changed everything. It wasn't loud, just soft, uncertain, like someone seeking shelter from a storm not just outside, but inside too. I hesitated for a second, holding my robe closer as if to hide the sudden rush of curiosity crawling through me. Then I opened the door. There he stood, Ethan. Rain dripping from his hair, shirt clinging to his chest, eyes swollen but alive with something between exhaustion and relief. He looked broken, yet beautiful in the way broken things sometimes are. "Hey," his voice cracked, low, rough, trembling. "Can I just sit for a while?" I didn't know where else to go. The smell of wet air and faint cologne drifted between us as I stepped aside without a word. The warmth of my living room swallowed him, but the warmth in my chest was more dangerous. He had been my neighbor for barely 3 months, polite smiles, short greetings, a few glances that lasted longer than they should have. I knew he was going through something, the quiet in his eyes always betrayed it. When he sat on my couch, something about the sight stirred me, a lonely man, drenched and defeated, seeking comfort, and a woman starving for connection, pretending not to notice how her robe had slipped off her shoulder. "Would you like some tea?" I asked softly. He smiled weakly. Anything warm would do. As I turned to boil the water, I felt his eyes follow me, not with lust, not yet, but with that unspoken hunger that only pain understands. The kind that makes two lonely souls forget boundaries, even just for a night. When I handed him the cup, his fingers brushed mine. Warm. Rough. Grateful. "Thank you," he whispered. "It's nothing," I lied. Because already, it was everything. Headphone call to action. Before I take you deeper into this story, this night that changed what comfort truly meant, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share this story if you've ever felt the line between compassion and temptation blur into one dangerous night. That was the night Solace knocked on my door. But when I opened it, I didn't know I was also letting in desire, guilt, and everything I had buried behind my smile. By the time the rain stopped, Ethan wasn't just a neighbor anymore, he became the storm I never saw coming. The rain hadn't stopped since that night he came knocking on my door. He was drenched, exhausted, a man whose spirit had been tested beyond limits. I still remember the way his voice cracked when he said, "I had nowhere else to go." And just like that, I let him in. At first, it was pure kindness, compassion, a gesture from one soul to another. But compassion has a strange way of melting into warmth, and warmth, when shared too long, begins to feel like something else, something that trembles under the skin. He stayed on my couch for a few days. I'd watch him from the kitchen, that quiet stillness in him, the way he breathed deeply after every sigh, like trying to let go of ghosts I couldn't see. He never talked much about his wife or what happened, but the pain lingered behind his eyes like smoke in an empty room. And maybe, that's what drew me in. One evening, as thunder rolled and the lights flickered, he came to the kitchen while I was making tea. His shirt was half-buttoned, his hair still damp from the shower, and the way he leaned on the counter, shoulders slouched, lips parted, made my breath catch. He whispered, "You've been too kind to me, you know." I smiled, pretending his presence didn't shake me. But when his fingers brushed mine as he took the cup, a silent current shot through me. It was sudden. Warm. Dangerous. That moment changed everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that touch, that lingering look, the one that asked questions neither of us were ready to answer. And when I finally walked into the living room to grab a blanket, I found him awake, sitting shirtless, his eyes meeting mine like he had been waiting. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked softly. I shook my head. "Neither could you." He smiled faintly, then patted the couch beside him. I sat. And for a moment, we just listened, to the rain, to the silence, to the ache building between us. Then he said it. I don't know what this is, but I feel safe here. His voice was heavy, trembling with emotion. And before I could speak, he leaned forward, his breath brushed against my skin, and the warmth of his closeness drowned every sensible thought. Our lips didn't meet immediately. They hovered, hesitant, but our hearts were already colliding. And when it finally happened, it wasn't lust. It wasn't just desire. It was relief. Passion. Guilt. All woven into one forbidden moment that made time stop. As his hands found my face, and mine clutched his shoulders, I realized how fragile loneliness could be, and how easily warmth turns to temptation. If you're watching this, I'd whisper to my viewers, don't judge too quickly. Sometimes, sin doesn't come dressed in darkness, it comes in comfort. Like, share, and subscribe, because this is only the beginning of what happened after that night. The night when compassion crossed a line and never came back. It had been 3 weeks since Daniel started staying over more often. What began as him stopping by for coffee after his late shifts became silent dinners, movie nights, and those slow, unspoken glances that filled the spaces words couldn't. That night, the rain was heavier than usual. It clung to my window like it didn't want to let go, like it had found a story worth staying for. Daniel came over, drenched from head to toe, his shirt sticking to his chest, his eyes searching mine as though he was looking for something he couldn't find anywhere else. Sorry, he whispered, shaking his wet hair. I just couldn't stay there anymore. I didn't ask what they meant, I already knew. His house wasn't home anymore. His wife had turned silence into punishment, and his heart had grown too tired to keep explaining itself. I handed him a towel, but when his fingers brushed mine, something stopped me. That feeling, that tiny jolt that reminded me I was alive, that I was still a woman capable of feeling something dangerous, something forbidden. He noticed my hesitation. His lips parted, unsure, trembling, but wanting. Before I could say anything, his hands cupped my face, and he whispered my name in a tone that melted every line of reason I'd drawn between us. Our lips met, softly, hesitantly at first, then with the kind of hunger you only feel when you've been starving for something your whole life. And right there, in that dim light, his pain became mine. His warmth pressed against my loneliness until I couldn't tell which heartbeat was his or mine. Gentle pause, voiceover tone softens. Before we go deeper into that night, please, if you're listening to this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Every click helps this channel grow, helps me bring you more true stories that dare to cross the boundaries of desire and heartbreak. Now, where was I? Oh yes, his lips, trembling against mine, like confession meeting forgiveness. When we finally pulled away, he looked into my eyes and said, "You make the noise stop." I didn't know what to say. So, I just smiled, my heart racing, knowing full well that this wasn't just comfort anymore, it was escape. And I was the escape he needed, even if it meant I was losing myself piece by piece to a love that was never meant to last. Voice lowers, emotional tone. That night didn't end in promises. It ended in quiet understanding, that what we shared couldn't exist in daylight, but it was the only place we both felt free. His silence that night wasn't empty, it was loud, echoing between us like thunder muffled by guilt. He sat across from me in my dim-lit living room, his eyes fixed on nothing, but every breath he took was dragging me closer. The city lights spilled through my window, painting his tired face with soft gold. I didn't know what to say, but my body, it did. Every inch of me felt his pain, his loneliness, and something unspoken that burned between us. I whispered, "You don't have to keep it all in anymore." He looked at me, really looked, and in that stare, I saw the weight of every night he tried to sleep beside emptiness. Then it happened. He reached out, his hand trembling as it found mine. The warmth of his palm, the roughness of his skin, it pulled me out of my own loneliness, too. That single touch was enough. Enough to break the walls, to rewrite the silence, to let two broken souls collide. I don't know how long we sat like that, fingers locked, hearts unguarded. But when he finally spoke, his voice cracked. I shouldn't want this, not now. I wanted to tell him I understood, that sometimes what we want isn't right, but it's the only thing that feels alive. And when his lips brushed against the back of my hand, it was gentle, yet filled with every unsaid word between us. Speech balloon. Hey loves, if you're feeling this moment right now, that tug between right and wrong, comfort and chaos, don't forget to hit that subscribe, give a thumbs up, and share this story with someone who loves deep emotions tangled in forbidden warmth. Because what came next was more than just solace, it was surrender. The rain came gently that evening, whispering against my window like a forgotten promise. The city lights shimmered through the fog, painting gold streaks across his face as he leaned closer to me on the couch. He wasn't the same man I met months ago, the one broken by betrayal, trembling under the weight of his past. He was calmer now. Steadier. Maybe because for once, he had found a place where his soul could rest, in me. You saved me, he whispered. Not just from them, but from myself. I smiled faintly, brushing my thumb across his jawline. If only he knew how much saving him saved me too. The silence between us wasn't empty, it was filled with unsaid truths, soft breaths, and the fragile rhythm of hearts finally learning to heal. He pulled me closer, and his warmth spread through me like sunlight breaking through clouds. The world outside didn't exist for a while. No noise, no judgment. Just two people learning to breathe again. His lips found mine, not desperate, not hungry this time, but thankful. It was the kind of kiss that said thank you for staying, thank you for believing. You feel like home, he murmured. And you feel like peace, I replied, voice trembling but true. He laughed softly, that deep, sincere laugh that once seemed impossible for him. Then he laid his head against my chest, and I could feel the rhythm of his heart sinking with mine, steady, hopeful, alive. That night, he didn't just sleep in my bed. He rested in my silence, trusted in my calm, and surrendered to the gentle hands that promised no more chaos. And as I watched him drift off, I realized, solace isn't found in the absence of pain, but in the presence of someone who stays after it. Speech balloon, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes, stories like these remind us that love can still bloom after the storm. Hashtag true infidelity, hashtag healing after heartbreak, hashtag romantic confession, hashtag American love tales, hashtag emotional story, hashtag love voice story, hashtag from pain to peace, hashtag story of solace, hashtag subscribe for more love stories. That evening, the sky hung low, painted in lazy shades of orange and grief. He stood by the window, shirt half buttoned, staring at the city lights that blinked like broken promises. I stood behind him, barefoot, wrapped in one of his shirts, trying to breathe past the ache that lived in my chest. He had found solace in my home. But somewhere along the way, I had lost mine. Don't forget to subscribe, I whispered softly, half laughing, half breaking, because every confession has its listener, and maybe mine just reached you. He turned around, eyes tired but still burning with that same desperate hunger, not for my body this time, but for calm, for something that felt like belonging. He kissed my forehead slowly, tracing the edge of my jaw with the same gentleness that once made me tremble. I don't deserve this peace, he said quietly. I smiled, though my eyes betrayed me. Peace doesn't ask who deserves it, it just settles where it feels needed. He touched my chin, made me look at him. And in that moment, I saw everything, the man who came to me shattered, the man who used my warmth to rebuild himself, the man who would soon leave once he remembered what healing felt like. I didn't stop him. I didn't beg. Because some people are not meant to stay, they are just meant to remind you that you can still feel. His last night was a blur of sighs, unspoken words, and soft promises that neither of us believed. The candlelight swayed against the walls, our shadows moved together, like two ghosts pretending to be alive one more time. Don't forget to like and share this video, I murmured as my breath caught between his name and my goodbye, because sometimes, what feels like comfort, is really the calm before the loss. Morning came too soon. His side of the bed was cold. The scent of him lingered, stubbornly, like a memory that refused to fade. And as I stood there, Holding his forgotten wristwatch in my trembling hands, I realized something. I wasn't his solace anymore. I was just the shelter he used to remember how to face the storm. Still, if loving him was my undoing, then I'd rather be broken beautifully. Because what we shared wasn't lust, it wasn't love, it was recovery disguised as romance. And maybe, that's the kind of story that makes you hit subscribe, not because it's perfect, but because it's painfully human. Kiss mark. End of story. Kiss mark. If you've ever given comfort to someone who left you emptier, hit the like button. Subscribe for more true confessions, where desire, healing, and heartbreak all meet in one bed of truth.